lẹ́ni bẹ̀yẹn onílé lóko. Ẹ sì kú dédé àsìkò yìí. Hello everyone, it's Adironke again. Today I'd like to continue my series on homonyms. I have addressed words that are the exact same pronunciation, and that would include tone marks, the exact same letters and tone marks, but these words mean different things. So the first example that I gave was with ba. Ba can mean hunger. It can be applied to the hunger context. It can be applied to the kill context, the turn off context. So that's an example of a homonym. And that happens to be a verb too. It was most of the examples that I give anyway revolved around verbs. This one is more of a noun mostly. Idi is the one that I'm going to address today. Idi. This is an example of Yoruba words that have multiple meanings. So when you say idi, you could be referring to the physical buttocks. Idi. It could be the bottom of something. Idi as well. Domi, idi. The reason that I'm doing domi, my students, my one-on-one students, at least the ones that this applies to, would understand. I'm trying to help you remember the tone marks and their importance for reading. Domi, idi. So it could be the buttocks, it could be the bottom of something, it could be the reason or cause or main point. Usually these three are synonymous or similar anyway, but many times the main point might be different from the reason. But id can be any of these three. And lastly, it could be the place or point of something. The place or point of something, so like by something. So these are the contexts that id could apply to. If we're thinking of id as buttocks, there would be a sentence, an example sentence that should go with that to illustrate that perfectly. Ìdí aya wa tóbi. Ìdí aya wa tóbi. Ìdí aya wa tóbi. Sounds like a weird thing to say. You don't think that people go around saying this, but I'll give you the word for word transliterations and tell you what it means. Ìdí is buttocks. Aya is wife. You can also say ìyàwó. That would be wife. Wa is our. Tobi is big. So ìdí aya wa tóbi. What that would be when you transliterate it, and when you're translating from a language to another language, you must know that it won't be the exact same arrangement, especially when it's the Yoruba language and the English language. The arrangement of the words would differ. So this is why I like to break words down, take them word for word. I think that's very crucial to learning, so that you will see how the sentences are constructed. I've not really given practical examples towards sentence construction yet, but that's close by. Whatever the case may be, I just want to do one or two homonyms before we get there. Now you have to fill in some words, because when you just put that together, that would be buttocks, wife, our, big. That sounds like a rough English statement, right? So you have to fill in the gaps. You have to put the necessary words so that it would make sense in English, to the English anyway, because we're translating to their own language now, so it might need some adjustments. The buttocks of wife, our, is big. It still sounds weird, doesn't it, when you think about it? And I'm using this as a perfect opportunity to tell you one or two things about sentence construction. So for possessives often come after nouns in the Yoruba language. Possessives and determiners. So in the English language, with the way that it would be arranged, the possessive would come before the noun. My daughter, my friend, their boy, is girl, is mother, kind of thing, their sister. In the Yoruba language, it's noun first, whatever it is that you're talking about has to first be established before you talk about the possessives that apply to them. So here it's wife hour. When you translate it word for word, it would be wife hour. The possessives come after. Now I have to translate. I've transliterated. I have to translate. It would be the buttocks of our wife is big. The buttocks of our wife is big. Now you have to change it to active voice. For Nigerians that have either relocated to North America or something, even in Europe, you would discover that one thing, say you write something, for all the grammar correction softwares out there, and even in your academic work, you would discover that one thing would be your putting statements in passive voice. Because when we translate word for word, at least when we have ideas in our head and we translate them to English, because they come off, it's like you have a Yoruba brain, you're thinking about an English concept, you start to do the word for word transliterations, especially when it applies, and what you get is passive voice. One thing that we usually have to do, in summary, basically, is have to, when we're translating to English, we kind of many times, especially within academic settings, learn to quickly change our statements to active voice. Things just sound better in the English language in active voice. So again, this statement alone shows you the differences between both languages, the grammar, the formation of sentences and such, which again, like I promised, we will treat separately. So Idiayawa Tobi translated to the buttocks of our wife is big, but what it translates to is our wife's buttocks is big. So let's say it's some naughty family member saying this. When they say it's a perfect thing to it's not something that we would say though. Well, of course we can say that in when you're amongst let's say a wedding is coming up, or some kind of thing is coming up, and they're sort of just chatting about the bride and such, sort of just talking about our features, which is like, again, it would be dependent on the people involved, how relaxed the setting is, but typically it's not something, it would be a sort of girl talk, it's not something that men will be expected to butt in or anything, and it would be like maybe at night, just to relax. Again, it's not something that you hear often, but the reason why it would be a wife is that in the Yoruba culture, a woman does not marry their partner alone. They marry their partner's family. So when you get married to a person, their father, your new husband's father, will call you our wife. The mother will call you our wife. Iyawo wa, or ayawa, and there are certain names that you have to call them as well, when you want to refer to them, especially when you want to differentiate between them and your own biological parent. You say ya mire, your mother, my mother, sort of to say is your mother but also my mother. It's a lot of these traditions and ways of talking are just slowly going away. Like even the new wife, if you're married to a family, if you meet children there, not children that are born after you are a wife, okay, after you've established her as a wife and perhaps you've begun to have your own children within their own family, let's say that you you meet children, especially when they're like 10 and above, you can't call them by their names. You have to call them by pet names. You can't say, if once their name is Ifatoba, you can't say Ifatoba, you have to, it could be Ako, Eko, Ura, it could be for the ladies, or sorry, it could be even for the girls, it could be ẹlẹ́yinjú ẹgẹ́, ìbàdí àrán, ìlẹ̀kẹ̀dí, ẹ̀yin fún jowó, ọ̀rọ̀ǹpọ̀tọ̀ níyùn, depending on their stature. You sort of have to look for a pet name that suits either the person's physical appearance or their character. If they're sort of on the plumpy side and they have like sort of like a fatty neck, you can say awe lorun bi ejigba ileke. They are just, this culture is slowly fading away. It is in the current times that you see a wife that is married into a family call the husband's sister their name. Ife, Ike, like that. These things were never done. But anyway, we'll talk about the culture later. Although I have videos on pet names already, so you might want to check those out. I have videos on the family structure already and how it works and all that. So I already have family related videos. If you want to check them out, I'll put the link somewhere. So again, Idi, buttocks. This is an example of a situation in which Idi would be used to refer to the buttocks. Another meaning that Idi could have, another context that it can apply to, like I said, was reason, cause, main point. Could be the reason, the cause, the main point. And I'll give you an example statement that aligns with that. Ìdí tí mo fi ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn. Again, I'm going to use the reason why I'm intentionally using for the beginner what you would call quite detailed, interesting example statements would be to help you get familiar with the sentence structures. Ìdí is reason. Like I've stated, it could be the main point, the cause, but I'm choosing reason here for the purpose of the statement. Ìdí is reason. Tí is that. Tí, me, tí. For my students who I'm currently doing tone marks with. We've shared a few jokes. For some you may particularly find it interesting, to pay attention to the terms as I read. Tí, that. Mo, I. Fi or she. For fi could be put, it could be place, something, somewhere. It could be use. It's always, fi is another homonym that I will address. It's even she is another homonym. We have several homonyms. They're just words that mean one or two things. She is do. It could be even to cause, depending on the context. It's pretty interesting. But the purpose of fi or she here is to introduce the following words. What I did and I'm providing a reason for, or what I did and provided a reason for. In this case, if it's what I did and provided a reason for. At this point, you've stated the reason. You must have stated the reason for doing whatever you did. She is do. She is do. Be is like that. Be is like that. Niye is that. But niye is not an original word. It's a combination. Okay. Ni and iye. Ni is, iye is that. So when you transliterate, of course, the reason, you put the again to make it make sense in English. Reason that, or like you could preferably say, the reason that I cause, and you would notice that I changed the font of the cause or do or place or put. I change because you would discover that within the English context, it's not exactly necessary to include it. Again, it's a translation between two completely different languages. We might have one or two similarities when it comes to certain things, but it's completely different cultures. The grammar is different and such. So you won't expect that every single thing has to be word for word, same arrangement, same use, same meaning, same. It doesn't work that way. So I changed the fonts of the cause. Did like that is that. So when you transliterate, you remove the cause since it's unnecessary. The reason that I did like that is that. And what that would mean is that is the reason I did that. So before the reason I did like that is that would be like a transliteration, and that is the reason I did that would be the translation. So ìdí tí mo fi ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn. Ìdí tí mo fi ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn. Or you could say ìdí tí mo ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn. Ìdí tí mo ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. If you say ìdí tí mo ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn. Ìdí tí mo ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Sounds rough. Sounds ìdí tí mo ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. The reason that I did like that, it would be, if you say ìdí tí mo ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀, it would sort of sound like the reason that I did like that, which doesn't really make good sense. So the reason, it's best to say, ìdí tí mo fi ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn, or ìdí tí mo ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn, which means what I've stated is that, that I've stated, that is the reason that I did that. So whatever I've talked about is the reason that I did whatever I did. So that's another thing. I'm going to move past this. Ìdí is the bottom of something. Pay attention to the bottom of this bottle for the next example that I'm going to give. And it's as follows. Ọmọ yẹn ò lè fi ìdí ìgò kọ́ ó. Ọmọ yẹn ò lè fi ìdí ìgò kọ́ ó. Ọmọ yẹn ò lè fi ìdí ìgò kọ́ ó. Ọmọ is child, nye is that. Nye, remember that I stated in the previous example that inye, dore, inye is also that, but whenever that is appearing with a noun, is to sort of serve as a determiner, especially this, that, in this case, it changes. It stops being inye, it becomes nye. So it changes when it becomes a determiner, but that's a different video. Omo is child, nye is that, o is not. Whenever you see o in a Yoruba statement, standing alone somewhere within or something, o. So you know that it has the do tone mark. Because if it's me, if it's o, it's like a it's a pronoun. That would be something different. It would be he or she or it. So that's different. So you kind of have to pay attention to the tone marks too. But o, whenever you see o standing like that separately in a statement, it means not. Le is can. Le is can. Fi is use. Fi is use. It's use in this case. Ìdí is bottom. Ìgò is, generally it's glass. Glass in general, but many times you can use it to refer to a glass bottle. So many times, lok shagowa, lokogowa, typically what they're referring to is a bottle, especially within the Nigerian setting where we sell pop in bottles, and you can resell those bottles, and bottles are just pretty prevalent in our general life, and you use the bottles to buy kerosene, and you use the bottles to buy epo, palm oil, so you use the bottles to buy groundnuts. So we just have a lot of glass bottles around us with the things that we buy. So we go na la ma lo fi ra kerosene. Anyway, moving on. Ko is right. Ko is right. O is typically in the Yoruba alphabet, because when you're teaching a beginner, you can't really start with tone marks. But a, e, I, o, u. A, e, I, o, u. The tone mark that they sort of give when you typically will not put anything if we're just teaching alphabets in general, and we're just showing anybody that really wants to know what the Yoruba alphabets are. But when you really think about the tones that you produce when you pronounce them, the sound that you make is sort of aligns with me. Even with the alphabets, A, B, D, A, E, F, G, B. B is different. B has like the do. So B, do. E, mi, I, re, G, ki, li, mi. So G, ki, li, mi. So there are one or two alphabets that you would pronounce differently per the 3 tone marks. If you've not seen my video on tone marks, I don't know if I talked about it. I have a video on it, my one-on-one with Richard. So you might want to check that out. That would help you get familiar with tone marks, just in case you've not seen any of my other videos. But O is an alphabet anyway. Typically, I would not include the tone mark me on it, but just because that's how it sounds, I'm including it anyway. Possessives or determiners come after nouns in the Yoruba language. Don't forget that as I transliterate. So let's just put the words together and see what they look like before we actually translate. Child that, not can, use bottom of glass. Two, again you're introducing the two so that it would make sense. Write alphabet O. Again, typically you don't include anything, any tone mark, just because you just want anyone who's learning to get a hang of the alphabet first before you go into tone marks. But I'm choosing to put it in this case. So what that means, when you rearrange that, child that would be that child, and then not can, that would be cannot. That child cannot use the bottom of a glass to write O. On the ground, typically sandy ground. So the person cannot use the bottom of a glass to write O. What that insinuates is that that child is illiterate. That's what it insinuates, that child is illiterate. Why is the child illiterate? The child... See, okay, I'm probably going to do a better explanation for you at this point regarding what that means, because I don't expect everybody to understand. If you look at the bottom of a bottle, it already has the O shape, especially a glass bottle. It already has the O shape. So the child, if you say, write the letter O on this sand, typically the Nigerian ground, before we started to cement our floors and put tiles on them and whatever else we do, interlocks or interlocking or whatever they are called, that is everywhere now. Typically we just be the earth, your feet on the earth, and it's a very grounding thing, just having access to like sand, just pure sand. It's really nice. Typically when people would write, especially children, especially for fun, they would write on the floor, and there are so many games that you can sort of draw the lines for the games with sticks, and there's the in and out, there's 10-10, there's one that you do like two squares, it's a rectangle shape, and then you put 8 different rectangles in that big rectangle. And there's a game around that. There are just so many things that you can do by writing on the floor. So if you tell an illiterate child to write O on the floor, the bottom of the bottle already has the O. But because they don't know what O is, they don't know what alphabet O is, it sounds familiar to them, but the language learning, read and write aspects, they've not picked up yet. They may not be able to. All they have to do really at that point is just put the bottle down, maybe like squeeze it on the floor or something, depending on what the edges of the bottle looks like, and that would be the request as O. But if you don't even know what O is in the first place, even if you have a bottle that you have, the bottom literally spells O, you still wouldn't know what to do. The child doesn't know what O is and cannot write it, and probably will not be able to read it if they can't write it, at least however they can. So yeah, that's what that means. And then lastly, so that I can let you go, ed could be by. It could be the point or place of something, which many times you can just simply translate to by, depending on the sentence structure. Ed is by. It could be the point or place of something. Alo sọ̀rọ̀ ìfẹ́ wa ní ìdí igi ọ̀pẹ. I'm reading like that for the sake of my students, just so that again I'm trying to infer tones. A lọ sọ̀rọ̀ ìfẹ́ wa ní ìdí igi ọ̀pẹ. A lọ sọ̀rọ̀ ìfẹ́ wa ní ìdí igi ọ̀pẹ. A is we, lo is go. Could even be went, depending on the sentence structure. Sọ̀rọ̀ is to talk. It's a combination of two words. So is say, or is words. Or it's simply word. It could be words in general. It could be sentences, Whatever the case may be, Ife is love. Ife is love. Wa is our. Wa is our. Again, don't forget, possessives, determinants come after. So as opposed to wa ife, you say ife wa, so. Ni, me, ni, me is the tone. Ni, so it's an introducer. Ni could also be say. You'd be quite surprised the number of homonyms that we have. It could also be say. It could also be have. Moni, asho, I have a cloth, or I have clothes, whatever the case may be. So again, don't be surprised if you see certain words mean different things in different contexts at different times, involving different people. Anyway, that's why I suppose that's why I'm doing homonyms now. Just get you familiar with that idea. Idi is by or at the point of. Igi is tree. Okwe is palm. So when you put that together, you try to transliterate and put some words, you get. We went to talk about love. We went to talk about love hour by the tree of palm. So in this case, you can see the pronoun / determiner thing, what it would be when you put the words together is we want to talk about our love by the tree of palm. When you actually translate that, would be more like we want to talk about our love by the palm tree. We want to talk about our love by the palm tree. I mean, the palm tree in itself is pretty symbolic because it's a very fertile tree. Every part of the palm tree is useful to the Yoruba people, from the wood to the palm nuts that you can take as a kuro, you can use for certain things. Although if you take it wrongly, it can make you cough. So, but I remember taking it several times as snacks. So it could be it could be iki, for divination. You don't, in that case, you won't break it open. You would just like do one or two things and then make that your divination iki. You don't eat it when you're hungry, and you don't play 10-10 with it. You don't stone it against somebody as a joke. You keep it sacred. I suppose that's the difference between calling it ekuro and calling it iki. It could be the exact same thing, but iki applies when you have strictly reserved the palm nuts for divination. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you'd like to, and let me know what your thoughts are. And please share the video and ask me questions and everything. And thank you for your support. Please continue to support my channel and book one-on-one lessons with me if you please. And I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.
Edele ọ̀rọ̀gùn ọlọ́mọ ògbóyè láké o ògbóyè lóko ògbóyè lọ́la. Edele ọ̀rọ̀gùn ọlọ́mọ èṣù mọ́sẹ̀ nìkankan wá o.